Could the Detroit Pistons trade for Anthony Davis? What do the trade packages look like? And what are the pros and cons for trading for the one-time superstar? He might still be a superstar. Who knows? We'll talk about today's episode, Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years for the Locked On Network, been credential media member over the last 3 years, and I appreciate all of you guys who make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I also got to let you guys know, thank you for helping make Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. Appreciate all of you guys' daily support. And if you guys want to find out another way to become even more of an everydayer and maybe join a Locked On Pistons Discord, find that out a little bit later on in the episode. But today we are talking about Anthony Davis, and we are joined by friend of the podcast, Kyle Metz. We know that I've often referred to him as the Pistons community's Keith Smith. He is the salary cap guru. He knows all about that kind of thing. We always have him on when it comes to trades, free agency, anything involving salary cap, CBA, any of that stuff. We always have him on because he knows his stuff and knows what he's talking about. Kyle, how you doing, man? Thank you for coming on.
It's fun to be here. I definitely try my best. Not perfect, but things are always changing. We're trying to learn. So yeah, I enjoy getting to do this for the community.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start off with trade packages for Anthony Davis. Then we'll move into pro trade for Anthony Davis, all the pros. And then we'll get into the cons of trading for Anthony Davis. And some of you guys who may not know may be asking, why are we talking about Anthony Davis? Why are you talking about trading for Anthony Davis? Well, if you missed it, Sham Charania tweeted out, or not tweeted out, reported, I should say. I saw it through a tweet. But reported that there are expected to be 3 teams in the Eastern Conference expected to show interest in Anthony Davis. He included the Detroit Pistons in one of them. We'll get to the other 2 teams. Kyle will get to that in just a few moments here. But the Pistons were included in this. We had some few other, not as nearly reputable people say that the Pistons could show interest, but it hasn't. We've heard some noise. Sham's kind of said that he's heard that they're going to show interest. Now, before we get into this, I guess I should say that Mark Stein has said that he's heard over the last month or so that it's looking more likely that the Pistons are to stand pat. Not ruling out anything, but he said he's heard that they're more likely to stand pat than they are to make a big swing. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but because Shams mentioned the Pistons are expected to be interested in Anthony Davis, we decided to start talking about Anthony Davis. So we're going to start with the trade package. Let's go ahead and get into this. The first trade package that Kyle pulled together for us is going to be, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it on the screen, is Anthony Davis to the Pistons for Tobias Harris, Caris LeVert, Marcus Sasser, and the 2026 first-round pick from the Detroit Pistons. Kyle, go ahead and explain why you put this package together, why you believe it works for both sides, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted this out maybe earlier today or yesterday. The big thing here is the idea is giving the Mavs cap relief, so getting the expiring contract to Tobias, and then some other role players that can to match salary. So Caris LeVert is primarily just salary matching. You could include Duncan Robinson here, but I went with Caris LeVert because there's no way you can trade your 2 best shooters in Tobias Harris and Duncan Robinson for an AD who is okay at shooting but not known for his 3-point shot. And then Sasser's also a really good shooter, but he's there just to make the money work. He's an asset who's on a good cost control next year, can maybe get some minutes there in Dallas. But it's primarily he's like the lowest just to get us over the edge. I think it was just like $100,000 just below the minimum salary matching. So this is pretty tight. It's about as close to the salary matching as you can get. And the reason why I went with this is, one, I was trying to look at a package where Detroit's not really dipping into their young core because, frankly, I don't know that they'd be interested in doing that for Anthony Davis too much. And we'll get to the one where they might do that depending on if they need to. But this was just pure salary, the expiring salary from Tobias. The Mavs get a 2026 draft pick. And then I'm also assuming in this trade that they're they're going to send out a few second rounders. Dallas has like 2 second rounders over the next 7 years, and Detroit has a ton. And so they actually, those could be assets, and they can throw as many second round picks as they need to make it happen. And I probably wouldn't lose sleep over it. But that's the assumption here. Ultimately, this helps the Mavericks tank a little bit this year. And kind of they lose control of their draft picks over the next few years after this year. This is their last one before it's going to likely go out. So this helps them make it as good as possible by tanking a little bit, while also giving them some salary relief next year. And then the primary for the Pistons, you get Anthony Davis. And the idea here is you put him at the 4 next to Duren. We know that Anthony Davis doesn't like to play the 5. And so he gets to come to Detroit, play the position that he prefers to play next to a guy who complements his skill set. And you can a 3-man rotation of Stewart and Duren and AD on the floor. Like there might be some spacing concerns, but you can stagger those guys at any time. And that's a pretty solid defensive rotation and with offensive firepower. And so that's kind of the idea there. Yeah, we can kind of get into specifics. I don't know if you want to dive in now to some of the pros and cons of this deal in particular, or if you want to have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we'll eventually get to here, and I'm going to keep the trade up for just a few more seconds here, but one of the things we're going to get to talking about this is the reason why there seems to be, it sounds like there's going to be people interested, so many teams interested in Anthony Davis, because it sounds like he's a distressed asset. It's not going to be, you're not getting Anthony Davis, we'll talk about this coming up, but a great basketball player. You're not getting him for just what his value is as a basketball player. You're getting him at the cost because of all the other stuff that comes with him. We'll talk about it, but you're buying low on Anthony Davis. So the idea of buying or getting Anthony Davis for nothing really costing you from the future, some salary matching. Obviously, fans like Tobias Harris, they like Marcus Sasser, all that. But like we're talking about Anthony Davis, so you're not really giving up anything. You're keeping your young guys. That would basically be, I think, most Pistons fans, if you want to trade for Anthony Davis, this would be like exactly what they would want. We're going to move on to the second trade because I don't think Dallas would take this. I think they would want the second trade that you crafted up. So let's move on to the second trade. Go ahead.
Let me give one defense why this might be good enough. Because I agree, It's probably not quite enough. But the one reason why I thought it might be is because the other teams mentioned is Toronto and Atlanta. Now, Toronto is up against the first apron, and they can't go above it. And so it's actually really hard for them to put together a package without giving up one of their core guys. And I don't see them doing that for Anthony Davis. So we're talking RJ Barrett and Pirtle. And they probably have to get a third team involved to take like Agbaji or something like that. And so it's complicated for them to get a deal done. And then also Atlanta, they're below the apron, but it's the same deal where they're going to have to give up Porzingis most likely, which it does offer Dallas a little more breathing room in terms of expiring salary than what the Pistons can offer, but it's going to be a similar package. They're not going to give any of their young guys for Anthony Davis, and the salary matching just doesn't really work for them to throw in one of their good young players. So the teams that have been mentioned as suitors, now I think there'll be others, but the ones who've been primarily mentioned really can't offer a package much different than this, where it's good expiring salary and a young player. So if they don't have to get up to that point, then this might be enough. But I agree, it's probably not what they want to do.
All right, so let's get to the second one now. The second one is one I'm interested. I think that the Mavericks would take, considering how he's not as valuable as he once was in the trade market and where they're at in their season. This one is Anthony Davis and Max Christie to the Pistons for Tobias Harris, Caris LeVert, Jaden Ivey in the 2026 first-round pick. Kyle, go ahead and break down why you went with this trade and why this one makes sense.
Yeah, this one's very similar to the previous one, but if Dallas is demanding they need to have a young player, Ivy is going to make sense in this deal. I think Duren is you don't want Anthony Davis at the full-time 5, so putting Duren in there doesn't make a lot of sense. And from a salary matching standpoint, sending Duren out is way harder. So Ivy going out with LeVert, you have a little bit more cap room. So that's where, in terms of salary matching, getting Max Christie to fit into that space helps. And I think it helps with the value proposition here, because Ivy, I think we'd all agree that probably has a higher upside than Max Christie, and this feels like a little bit too much. Like good expiring salary, a good draft pick plus some seconds, and a good young player feels a little much. for Anthony Davis, especially because it doesn't solve the spacing issues. So bringing Max Christie back helps with the spacing issues. He's cost control for 2 more years after this, and can kind of help with the roster management from having to send out too many guys and not getting any back. So that's my thought process here. Both of these trades would allow them to convert Danis. It would open up a roster spot and convert Danis, who's been in the rotation, to fill in that backup point guard spot. And then this deal actually brings some cap relief compared to the other one. The first one, you're going to be fighting the second apron as early as next year, where this one pushes that off a little bit because you don't have Ivey's $30 million cap hold on the books in addition to Anthony Davis's $60 million salary next year. So this kind of makes that trade-off there while giving the Mavericks some more long-term value in a guy like Ivey.
Yeah, so I think this one probably would get it done. I don't think the question on this one would be from Dallas's end. I think this would be from Detroit's end about whether they would want to do this. But I think this one's much closer. I think if any trade they make with the Mavericks, I think they're going to ask for Ivey. And I'm not going to get into my full thoughts on Ivey because I know how that gets. But I think overall, like you can see that if any of the young core guys are expendable, it probably is Ivey at this point. They're not moving on from Duren. They're not moving on from Ausar. And it doesn't seem like they want to move on from Ron Holland either. If there's one player that seems like he is expendable, it is Jaden Ivey. And I feel like the Pistons, if they did want to go with Anthony Davis, I think this would have to be the deal that they would have to come to. And I personally, if I am the Pistons and I am saying I want Anthony Davis, I would do this deal. If you don't want Anthony Davis, obviously don't do any deal. But if you're operating from the standpoint of we're the Pistons and we want Anthony Davis, I think this is I think I do this deal right here. But with that said, I do want to get into now coming up after the break, whether I actually would do this and why there are some pros and cons to wanting to go after Anthony Davis. And we'll say at the end of this, whether we believe the Pistons actually should end up doing, we'll give our actual opinions on it. We'll talk about it coming up in just a few moments. Today's episode is brought to you guys by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Prices include fees up front, which I love. There's no last-second surprises at checkout. You also get alerts for teams and matches that make it easy to grab tickets the moment they drop instead of missing out. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And this is what I was telling you guys about. Thank you for making Locked On Pistons again your guys' first listen every day and making Locked On your number one sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up another level and go ad-free. I know a ton of you guys will love this. If you want to listen to the Locked On Pistons podcast ad-free, you can join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Pistons with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all just for $5 a month or $50 a year. You can go to lockedonpistons.supercast.com, and if you check that link also in the description down below, you can go ahead and get a part of the Everydayer Club. Again, some of the things that comes with the Everydayer Club, you get access to a Locked On Pistons Discord. We can also access other channels within the Locked On Sports podcast network's Discord. There's multiple different channels. I think you guys really like it. A members only Locked On merch store with exclusive gear. Again, I think one of the things you guys will love the most about it is the fact you get ad-free listen to Locked On Pistons. So if you're interested in all that, I'll link it down below, or if you want to just go type it in now, it's lockedonpistons.supercast.com. All right, Kyle, let's go ahead and get into this now. I think a lot of the playback community will like that now that playback's ending, sadly, Friday. I think a lot of the playback community will enjoy rotating over to Discord and having that community still together, talk Pistons. All right, let's get into the pros for trading for Anthony Davis. I want to start with you. I'll let you go first. Anthony Davis is still a great player. We both agree on this, right? Like he's still a great player.
When healthy, yes.
Correct. And that's definitely going to be something that gets brought up soon here. But go ahead and give me one of your pros for trading for Anthony Davis, because I have a few here that I want to go through, but I want to hear from you first. You go ahead and start.
I do think Anthony Davis fits the identity of what JB wants to do. It would be doubling down on the things they're good at for sure. He's still a good defender. He can put up points in bunches. So, you've talked about before how Tobias has been that safety blanket at the end of a shot clock who can go get like a match, like mismatch, like go up against a mismatch and get you a bucket. I mean, Anthony Davis does that, but like at least 2.5 times better than Tobias, right? Like he is still great, if not elite at that. And so he does provide offensive punch. He can be a guy who you can be a second option, or even with Duren, like, Duren's kind of becoming that second option to Cade, but AD can do that in a different way that feels more like a creator. And so I think it just gives you another scoring option for when you need someone to carry the load while also not being a liability on defense. So those are some of the things that I could see being beneficial it would definitely, I think, make more clear if Pistons aren't already the second best defense, it would for sure lock them in as long as Anthony Davis is healthy.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, I keep making comments that I think it's hilarious that you say the second best defense, because we all just have punted on catching OKC. It's just like OKC is just. Have you seen how far ahead they are from the second place team in defensive rating? They're like 8 points ahead. It's insane. It's crazy. Having that low defensive rating in 2025, I thought was impossible. I don't know how they're crazy. But yeah, I agree with you. Before the season, we did a Locked On Top 100, and I had Anthony Davis in my top 12. I thought when he's healthy and when he's on the floor, he is still one of the 12 best players in basketball. I felt like before the season, he is incredibly impactful defensively. We know how great he is defensively, but trading for Anthony Davis, there's been a lot of people saying that they want Cade Cunningham to have his Batman. They want him to go out there and actually play with another superstar, another all-star level player. And while Jalen Duren's taking this step forward, and they have a few other young guys that, the fans love, Anthony Davis would be that bona fide Batman, or Robin, I should say, next to Cade. He would be bona fide number 2, a guy who has won a championship as the second best player on the team, a guy who during that championship run could have won finals MVP during that. Like we've seen him reach heights of that we haven't seen very many players do. Like Anthony, don't get it confused. Anthony Davis is still exceptional. He is a great basketball player. And I do agree with you that he would take this defense that, if, again, like you said, if it's not second the best in the league right now, I mean, you add Anthony Davis to Isaiah Stewart and Ausar Thompson with Jalen Duren, with the size they have at every single position, the length now, like you're just doubling down and being like, you're not going to score on us. It's just not going to happen. You're never going to score on us. And it would be frightening, I feel like, for opposing teams to go against them within the half-court defense. It'd just be the amount of length and activity you'd have defensively would be wild. I also agree with you about offensively that Tobias does provide a little bit of that bailout option, but Anthony Davis is just better. He can do that, but also better ball, also giving you more on-ball juice. He's a better play finisher, I think, than Tobias Harris, obviously. He serves as another lob threat. He's a guy who can give the ball at the high post and trust him to make a play out of that, whether it's scoring or even finding somebody open. Like, he's not Magic Johnson. I don't think he's even as good of a passer as maybe Giannis at this point in his career. But Anthony Davis is capable of making those reads as well, and he draws that attention. I just did a film breakdown with Jalen Duren's drive to the basket today, and spoke about how Jalen Duren is finally acquiring like 2 to the ball a lot, and that the Pistons seem like they finally have another guy that occasionally will draw 2 to the ball instead of it just being Cade. Like, having Anthony Davis, you will have a lot of guys on the floor that defenses are going to be having multiple guys focused on, that should open up other advantages for other players within the half-court offense. So all of that said, I like that. Those are my main pros for going after Anthony Davis, just that he's great. I mean, that's a long way of saying, if you don't feel like reading the whole message, short answer, he's fantastic. He's a fantastic basketball player. He's an all-star level player. I think higher than just an all-star level player. And when you can add that type of talent, I think it does It does things that maybe we haven't expected the Pistons to be able to pull off this year. And I guess that's the next question I want to go with you or go to you for is obviously if you make this move, you believe this puts you over the top. Do you believe the Pistons trading for Anthony Davis puts this team over the top? As far as getting to the finals, do you think it gets them to the finals in the East?
I think it really depends on if it's one of the packages that we put out before. I think it could. Definitely, if you're not going to send Ivy out, I definitely think that you have to really consider that deal because you're basically getting him for scraps. Like Tobias is not scraps. I love Tobias. Like we undersell the leadership that he brings in the vibes in the locker room. Like the other players love him. So like that would be a loss for sure. But like from a pure basketball standpoint, you're giving up two that are in the rotation, but we've shown that you can win without, and one that's not even in the rotation right now because he's been injured. So you have to consider that. Does it push them over the edge? I definitely think it puts them in a conversation that right now we're still wondering, right? It's like, okay, we'll see quarter of the season in. Like it's been a lot of close games. So, there's some luck there. I think getting Anthony Davis in that way would be like okay, no doubt top 4 team in the East and immediately puts you in we don't have to question. It may not happen, but it's like, but they have the talent requisite to make a run if they get Anthony Davis for sure.
Yeah. So my answer is going to actually lead us into the next segment here. While I think Anthony Davis is absolutely exceptional, and adding that talent immediately puts the conversation on. You have to start talking about them as an Eastern Conference contender. You can't have that type of talent with Cade and Anthony Davis on the same team in the Eastern Conference and not have the conversation of, is this team going to go to the finals? Like that immediately becomes, I think, the expectation of a team that has Cade and AD on the same team. So I understand that completely. I'm going to say my answer, I'm not so sure it actually would make them a contender because of the cons we're about to get to. So stay tuned coming up. We'll get to the cons and why I believe it's not as sure of a thing to me that actually makes them that great of a team where we're talking about they're getting to the NBA Finals. We'll talk about it coming up. Today's episode is brought to you guys by Mint Mobile. There's no reason, to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it to the full Scrooge treatment. And what makes this even better is how simple Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. The service is fast and super reliable, even on the go. It feels good knowing you're not overpaying just to stay connected. Turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint Unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $9 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required, $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees, initial plan term only. Over 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com for more details. So I want to thank you guys again. Make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And if you want to be a part of the Everydayer Club and get a part of the Locked On Pistons Discord and have all the added bonuses that come with that, go to the link down below in the description. It's in there. Some of you guys say you guys don't see it. Just got to scroll down there in the description, or if you just want to type it in, it's lockedonpistons.supercast.com. But let's go ahead and get into the cons, Kyle. So I want to start here, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I think Anthony Davis is obviously, he was a top 75 player a few years ago. Like he is an exceptional basketball player. But the reason why he is a distressed asset right now is because of the availability concerns. It is impossible to have these conversations about Anthony Davis without talking about the reason why he's available, which is he's just always hurt. He's just always hurt. And it's not like there's a few guys, like I hear people over the last few days, I've heard people try to say, yeah, Giannis is injury prone, but Giannis, like over the last 5 years, has played 65 plus every single year. It's not one of those where people over exaggerate how much this guy's really injured. It's not one of those ones where a good player becomes available, so now everyone just starts picking at them to try and make it seem like they're not actually that good, like they're doing with Giannis right now, in my opinion. No, Anthony Davis actually has a major injury concern. Going all the way back to 2018-2019 season, he's played 56 games 1 year, 62, 36, 40, 56. He did play 76 in 2023, but then down to 51, played only 9 games with Dallas after being traded, and then he's only played 10 games this year. So we're talking about since 2018-2019, he has only played over 60 games twice. And he played 62 in 2019-2020, and he played 76 in 2023-2024. He's yet to hit 60 games in a year outside of that. That is a major concern. He is a legit injury-prone player, and a lot of this would be you're selling everyone on, if he's healthy, this is what it could look like. And I get that 100%. And I've said on the podcast many times that these are the type of players I think the Pistons should go after. The Pistons need to go after somebody who is a lower asset, has lost some of their value because of some of the baggage that comes with them, so they don't have to pay a premium price, take that risk, and then hope it pays off for them. I think that's the best case scenario for the Pistons. I'm not sure if Anthony Davis is it. It feels like Anthony Davis requires so much belief, so much like hopeful thinking that he'll stay healthy long enough. Even if you want to say let's just hope he's healthy in the playoffs. Just get to the playoffs. If he's healthy in the playoffs, we're good. He's even been hurt in the playoffs too. It's not one of those things where it's like, okay, you can just kind of load management through the season and then get to the playoffs. You have Anthony Davis. He gets hurt. He's been hurt then too. So that's obviously the number one risk with trading for Anthony Davis that has me hesitant. I'd say the second thing that makes me more hesitant, because trading for Anthony Davis and the packages we were talking about, especially the first one, it's not much at all. And honestly, I think I probably would take the chance on it if it's just one, especially the first package. If it's the first package, I'm like, it's Anthony Davis. If I can take a chance on him without really giving up anything, screw it. Yeah, for sure. The thing that makes me most hesitant to trading for him is I don't know if he actually fits. I don't know if I think he actually fits on the team. And that's not to say, like, a lot of people will have the belief of, and I can't disagree, that talent figures it out. If you put talent together, they will figure it out. And maybe that is the case. But I'm not sure how the Pistons would be able to play Ausar, AD, and JD in the half court. You can get away with 2 guys the way the Pistons have that are non-shooters and find different ways to make them work. There's ways to do it. Once you get to 3, and AD is not a complete non-shooter, but he's not getting up more than 2 threes a game. He's not letting it fly from deep. He's not someone who wants to stay out there. He likes to operate inside. He's not a 3-point shooter like that. He'll get some up, but he's not like that. I'm not sure how the Pistons will be able to make that work. Maybe JP has some crazy idea and maybe they come up with something. I just struggle myself to see any way how you could make a half-court offense work that has AD, JD, and Ausar all on the floor. Now, could you stagger them? Could you get Ausar out early and then bring in and then kind of stagger them throughout the game? Sure, you probably could do that. But I've always had the belief that if you're going through multiple different avenues to not play your 5 best players because your 5 best players can't play together, I probably don't want to do it. Like, if you can't play your 5 best players together, that's probably not a good situation. So that's the biggest thing to me. I just don't know if he actually fits the team. So what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That's something that you live with when you've drafted all of those guys and they're on rookie contracts and you're still trying to figure out, and then you make the trade for the guy that fits, right? That's a part of the building that we're in now. Like, and that's what I've been saying this for years. Like, young cores are built to be broken. Like, I love all the guys, but like it's almost impossible to draft guys that are talented and all fit together well. Right. And so that's what you see teams figuring out when they've got all these guys. And now it's time, if the Pistons are going to push their chips in, it's got to be for a guy who really fits Cade. And maybe it's becoming more Cade and Duren than Cade and Ausar. We'll see. That's going to still be a conversation. But at this point, I agree. Anthony Davis, it would be a tough sell. Like, you're not going to be able to just put him in the corner like Tobias, right? Like, Tobias can do that and be content and we'll let it fly from the corner. So that's a big difference. And I think personality wise, and what Tobias brings culturally to the team is almost, I wouldn't say the opposite of AD. I don't want to make it sound like he's a bad teammate, but like, he's different than Tobias, right? Like, the things you hear about Tobias versus the at least the persona that Anthony Davis carries, like, he hasn't exactly been a happy camper everywhere he's gone. And so I think that begs questions for me too. But so from a culture fit and a basketball standpoint, at least on offense, I do worry about the spacing issue. Now, again, gravity is gravity. Like we sometimes obsess with spacing having to be 3-point shooting. Anthony Davis is going to create gravity just by being on the floor. And so maybe they can get around that. But I agree. It's not the best fit. And if you're going to pay a guy, which one of my big cons is, you're going to pay a guy $54 million this year, $58.5 next year, and then $62.8 million with a player option in 27, the same year that Ausar's extension has to come in. That's where I'm going. He has to be perfect glove fit to make it really worth it, because we're already talking about pushing up against the second apron next year, like with him on the team, depending on what the trade package is and how you structure Duren's extension and things like that. So from a money standpoint, it really limits your ability. It pushes them over the first apron, which means they can't take in more salary than they send out. There's a bunch of restrictions with that that we can get into, but you can look it up. Other people have done this work. So if to make that move, you have to be really sure. And I think with his injury history, his age, and the salary that he's on, I think there are better fits that I feel more comfortable putting more chips into the table for than that. Right? He's making more than Giannis, right? Like that's just a thing. So yeah, I think that's where I also view it as really risky and maybe not worth it.
Yeah, and obviously, like I mentioned, the injury stuff's gonna be the first thing everyone brings up. But honestly, my head first went to, does it actually even work within like this team? And I want to hit on the point you brought up, which is very important, which is you get to this point of the team building phase to eventually, and Trajan has said this. I know everyone likes to keep going back to the clip of him saying, I don't know if we're going to be aggressive. I want to get answers. What everyone actually is ignoring, what he's said in those clips as well, is you wait to find out these answers about what you need, then you make the push. He's never once said he's not going to make a trade. He's said you need to find the answer to know what the core is and what that core needs to complement it. That's when you go and make the move. And that's where the Pistons find themselves in. And if you are going to make a move, like you mentioned, it needs to be along that concept. It has to be, we know this is what this team needs. We have our core. Okay, now we're pushing in the chips to get what that core needs. And I'm just not sure. Again, I know there's going to be some people that say it's Anthony Davis, bro. Like he's that good. Like why you're overthinking this? I don't know. I know he's great. I'm not as second guessing his greatness at all. I really just don't know if it actually makes a lot of people better because of some of the fit offensively. And like you mentioned, there are a few other players that I honestly think there's quite a few other players that aren't as good as Anthony Davis that I would give up more for Anthony Davis. I think they are just a better fit and would elevate the young core around them without being as good of a player as Anthony Davis. I think they just would fit what the team needs more. I probably would give up more for them. So look, like I said earlier, if you came up to me, I'm not going to lie to you guys. If you came up to me and said, Ku, you can have Anthony Davis, all you have to give up is Caris LeVert, Tobias Harris, and Marcus Sasser. It's going to be hard pressed for me to sit there and say, nah, I don't want Anthony Davis. Like that would be very tough. Like if that's a package you can actually get him with, I think it's going to be hard to see someone say, nah, I don't want Anthony Davis then. Because it truly is like you're giving up nothing. You're just giving up matching salaries at that point. Like, and that would be tough to say no to. And I think that's why you see teams like Tom is saying, like Toronto, Detroit. You're going to hear like, if that's really where his value is at, you're going to hear probably like 7, 8+ teams interested in Anthony Davis. Because like, okay, well, if we can get Anthony Davis for nothing, basically, like, yeah, of course we want Anthony Davis. But yeah, I just question the fit. I think there's other players I'd rather the Pistons go after that fit better.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I mean, Omari Sankova from the Detroit Free Press did report or is reporting that he's heard nothing about Detroit's actual interest. So this is not, I wouldn't say speculation from Shams, but it is more likely AD's agent putting out there, Mavs putting out there, here are some teams that maybe that might have interest or could be interested. And that's not to say there hasn't been any interest expressed, but that's been the reporting. Like you said, Mark Stein, Omari, they said there's been no like actual conversations about Anthony Davis up to this point. And so it's an interesting hypothetical. Yeah, to your point, same thing. If on paper you told me that's what you could have AD for, like that's a hard thing to say no to. But then you have to step back and say, what is it going to cost them instead? right? Like, what is the opportunity cost of having Anthony Davis? Because does that mean you can't extend Duren fully, or you can, but then you have to lose Ron Holland, right? You won't have the money to re-sign him. Like, is that what it means? That's a player option in 2027. So they don't even have control over that. Like, Anthony Davis gets to decide if he's going to pick that up. And then he's going to want an extension. We didn't even get into that he's due for an extension. And then you're paying him till he's 37, So the last thing I'll say, just to correct myself before they came after me, he's making the same amount as Giannis is, that he has the same exact contract as Giannis. And so honestly, from a salary standpoint, why, keep the powder dry, right? Like, why would you not put your chips in for Giannis if you're gonna do that? Like, that's the kind of thing. I don't think Giannis is coming here, but you get my point. Like, and I do think there's other guys that you can use that salary for, or not have to give up Tobias at all, that would come in and actually improve the team more than maybe Anthony Davis would, even if they're less talented. And I agree. So I think the opportunity cost really is what pushes me into the no column, at least for now.
So I'll wrap up the podcast with this. I want to say two things that I've heard. For those of you guys who listen to the end of the podcast, you guys get to hear this kind of stuff. So I asked people today, some people I happen to know, if the Pistons actually have interest in Anthony Davis. What I was told today was probably not. That's basically what I was told, that they haven't really heard anything. So it backs up what Amari's heard as well, that they haven't really. It doesn't sound like it's actually going to happen. It definitely feels like it's Shams doing a favor for Clutch, that kind of thing. The second thing I will say is that Evan Sidery tweeted something out today, and I know that Evan Sidery is not a very trusted guy. Like, I completely am understanding with that. And I'm not saying anyone should trust him on just about anything he tweets out. I get it. I will say what he tweeted out today is what I have heard for the last month and a half, is that if there is a trade package that the Pistons would do, it's been the same Ivey Tobias first. That's a package that they will shop around. Maybe shop around is the wrong word. That's a package they will. Okay, hey, what's Ivey Tobias in first going to get us? What's that pack? Is that package going to give us something that maybe we would really like? If that's something that can get them a really great piece, I think that's something they may do towards the trade deadline. Again, shop is maybe the wrong word, because it's not like they're actively trying to get rid of these guys. But if they decide that they want to upgrade, that is what I've heard the package is that they would be willing to part with, and they want to find out, okay, what would this get us? Would this get us a great piece that we really want, or is that not enough? If it's not enough, then okay, we'll just sit and stand pat. But I have heard what he tweeted out about how the Pistons are willing to move off of an Ivey Tobias first package. I have heard that same thing for the last month and a half. Whether they actually do or not, we'll see. But I've heard the same thing over the last month or so. So I should wrap it up with that right there. Is there anything else you want to say, Kyle?
I'll just say that makes sense, because Ivey plus Tobias in a first gets you a player that's making $46.2 million or less. That's a lot of range. And then if you have to throw Sasser in there, or a minimum contract just to get over the hump, to get, that puts you in Lauri Markkanen range salary. Like, that's a lot of salary. So yeah, I agree. That's why that package is getting floated around. And Evan, if you're listening to this, unblock me, bro. It's all love. I wasn't trying to make fun of you. I promise. It's just a misunderstanding.
I think Evan, I'm pretty sure I was told that Evan used to be a locked on guy, like when it very first started, like back in 18-19 or something. I forget where it was, but I think back in 18-19, he was a locked on guy, and just, did whatever it is he does now is, I don't even know what it is. What does it actually? Let's not get into that. I don't want to sound like I'm a hater. I don't like whatever. Kyle, thank you for coming on, man. You guys can find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Metz 23. Appreciate all of you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on your podcast platforms. Let us know in the comment section down below, or over on Twitter, would you guys want the Pistons to trade for Anthony Davis? But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.